Hey everyone, get ready because I've got a super fun story for you today. It's about a sunny day, a quiet street, and a guy named Jake who didn't see trouble coming. This tale is full of surprises, and I promise you'll want to hear it all. Let's jump right in. It was a bright, sunny afternoon in a little place called Oakwood Lane. The sun was shining high in the sky, making everything look happy and warm. Birds were chirping their little songs, tweet, 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 like they didn't have a care in the world. The grass on every lawn sparkled with tiny drops of water from sprinklers. Kids rode bikes up and down the street, laughing and shouting. Houses stood neat and tidy, painted in pretty colors like blue, yellow, and white. Everything seemed perfect, like a picture from a storybook. But not everything was as calm as it looked. Nope, not even close. In the middle of this peaceful neighborhood lived a guy named Jake Miller. Jake was just a regular dude, no fancy clothes, no big job, just a normal guy trying to live his life. He had a small house with a little roof vent on top. You know what a vent is, right? It's like a tiny pipe that sticks out of the roof and lets steam or hot air puff out sometimes. It's no big deal, just a normal thing. Houses have to stay cool inside. Jake's vent was small and quiet, puffing out a little steam now and then. A puff, 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 nothing special, nothing loud, nothing anyone should care about, but someone did care, and that someone was about to make Jake's day a lot more exciting than he wanted. That someone was Karen Thompson. Karen wasn't just any neighbor, she was the HOA queen. HOA stands for Homeowners Association, which is like a club that makes rules for the neighborhood. They tell people how tall their grass can grow or what color their house can be. Karen loved being in charge of the HOA. She acted like she owned the whole street, not just her own house. Every day, she walked around with a clipboard in her hand, checking everything. She'd look at every bush, every mailbox, every blade of grass like it owed her something. If a flower was crooked, she'd write it down. If a trash can was out too long, she'd make a note. Clip, clip, clip went her pen on that clipboard. She strutted around like a boss, her nose high in the air, telling everyone what to do. Karen's house was perfect, of course. Her grass was always cut just right. Her flowers stood straight like soldiers. Her mailbox shined like it was brand new. She wanted everyone else to follow her rules too. If you didn't, oh boy, watch out. She'd knock on your door or send you a mean letter telling you to fix it. Most people just nodded and did what she said because it was easier than arguing. But Jake wasn't like that. And that's where the trouble started. Jake was different from Karen. He didn't care about fancy rules or perfect lawns. He lived in his little house and kept to himself. He liked fixing cars in his garage, vroom vroom. He'd get his hands dirty with oil and tools, making old engines purr again. He mowed his lawn when it got too tall, but he didn't measure it with a ruler like Karen did. He paid his HOA dues. Those are like fees you give the club to keep the neighborhood nice. But he didn't bow down to Karen's every word. He wasn't rude or loud, he just did his own thing, quiet and simple. His old truck sat in the driveway, a little rusty but still running. His house was plain but cozy. And that roof vent, it just sat there doing its job, puffing steam every once in a while. But Karen didn't like Jake, not one bit. From the very first day he moved in, she had her eye on him. Maybe it was that rusty truck parked out front. Maybe it was the way he didn't smile and wave at her every time she walked by. Maybe it was because he didn't run over to thank her for all her HOA rules. Who knows, nobody could figure out why she picked on him. But she did. Oh, she sure did. She'd walk past his house extra slow, staring at everything. She'd squint at his windows, frown at his grass, and shake her head like he was breaking some big law. She'd mutter under her breath, "That Jake Miller, he's trouble." Trouble? Jake? He was just living his life. But Karen saw something she didn't like, and she wasn't going to let it go. Now let's talk about that sunny afternoon when the story really kicks off. Jake was in his garage working on a car. He had his radio on, playing some music dum while he turned a wrench. The sun was shining through the open garage door and he was happy. Outside, kids rode by on their bikes, giggling. A breeze rustled the trees. It was one of those days where everything feels good. Jake didn't know it yet, but that peace wasn't going to last. Nope, not with Karen around. Across the street, Karen was on her porch watching, always watching. She had her clipboard in one hand and a glass of lemonade in the other. Sip, sip, sip. Her eyes darted around looking for something to complain about. That's when she saw it, Jake's roof vent. Puff, puff went the steam, floating up into the blue sky. To Jake, it was nothing. To you or me, it was nothing. But to Karen, oh, it was like a monster on the roof. Her eyes got big, her mouth turned down, and she slammed her lemonade glass on the table. "That's it," she said to herself. "That vent is ugly. It's against the rules. I'm going to fix this." Jake had no idea what was coming. He was just humming along to his music, twisting a bolt on the car, clink, clank, while Karen started her plan. She didn't like that vent, and she didn't like Jake. She was about to make his life a lot harder, all because of a little puff of steam. But here's the fun part. Karen didn't know something big was about to happen, something she never saw coming. A storm was brewing, and it wasn't the kind with rain or thunder. It was a storm of trouble, and it was heading right for her. So here's a question for you, friends. What would you do if someone kept sticking their nose where it didn't belong? Would you ignore them? Would you tell them to stop? Would you just laugh and let it go? Think about it, because Jake, about to show us something totally wild. He didn't fight or yell, not yet anyway. He just kept being Jake. But Karen, she was about to stir up a mess she couldn't handle. And trust me, you're going to want to stick around to see what happens next. Picture this, a quiet guy, a bossy neighbor, and a tiny roof vent that's about to turn everything upside down. It's crazy, right? Jake didn't ask for this. He didn't want any trouble, but trouble found him anyway thanks to Karen and her clipboard. She thought she was the queen of Oakwood Lane, but queens can fall, can't they? And sometimes the people you think are small and quiet, like Jake, have a surprise up their sleeve. The birds kept chirping that day. The sun kept shining. Kids kept riding their bikes, zooming past Jake's house. Everything looked normal on the outside, but inside this little neighborhood, something big was starting. Karen was ready to make Jake's life crazy, all because of that vent. She thought she had the power. She thought she could boss him around. But oh, how wrong she was. She didn't see the storm coming her way. A storm that would flip this story in the funniest, wildest way. So grab a snack, get comfy, and keep listening, because this is just the beginning. Jake's day was about to get a whole lot weirder, and Karen, she was about to learn a lesson she'd never forget. What do you think happens next? Any guesses? Drop them in the comments below and let's find out together. This story's got twists, turns, and a big surprise that'll make you smile. Stick with me, friends. Jake about to show us something awesome. Hey, friends. We're back with Jake and Karen, and things are about to get wild. You remember that sunny day on Oakwood Lane, right? Birds chirping, kids biking, everything looking calm. Well, that calm didn't last long, not with Karen around. She had her eyes on Jake's little roof vent, and she was ready to start some big trouble. Let's see what happened next. It all began with that vent. You know, that tiny metal pipe on Jake's roof that puffed out steam sometimes? Puff, puff, puff. It wasn't loud, it wasn't ugly, it was just there doing its job, keeping Jake's house cool. Most people wouldn't even notice it, but Karen, oh, she noticed. She noticed it big time. One day, she decided she'd had enough. She put down her lemonade glass, slam, and marched right over to Jake's house. Her shoes went clomp, clomp, clomp on the sidewalk, and her face was redder than a ripe tomato. She was mad, really mad. Jake was just sitting on his porch, sipping a soda and watching the clouds. He liked quiet days like that, no fuss, no noise, just peace. But then Karen showed up. She stopped right in front of him, her hands on her hips, and pointed up at the roof. "That thing on your roof is an eyesore," she yelled. Her voice was loud and sharp, like a dog barking at a squirrel. She jabbed her finger at the vent like it was a monster or a big pile of trash. "It's ugly. It's against the rules." I'm reporting you to the HOA right now. Jake looked up at her, then at the vent, then back at her. He didn't get why she was so upset. It was just a little pipe. He leaned back in his chair and shrugged. It's a vent, Karen, he said, nice and calm. It keeps my house cool. What's the big deal? His voice was soft, like he didn't want to fight. He just wanted her to go away and leave him alone. But Karen, she didn't like that answer, not one bit. Her eyes got big and her cheeks puffed out like she was a balloon about to pop. What's the big deal? She shouted. The big deal is it looks terrible. It's breaking the rules. You can't just do whatever you want around here. She waved her clipboard in the air like it was a magic wand. Clip, clip, clip went her pen as she wrote something down. Jake peeked at her scribbling, but he couldn't see what it said. Probably something mean about him and his vent. Then, with a big huff puff, she turned around and stormed off. Her shoes clomped away and her ponytail bounced like it was mad too. Jake shook his head and took another sip of his soda. She's nuts, he mumbled to himself. He figured that was the end of it. Karen loved sending nasty letters to people, little notes that said stuff like cut your grass or paint your fence. Jake thought she'd just write him one of those, he'd toss it in the trash and life would go on. Easy, right? Nope, not even close. Karen wasn't done with him yet. She was just getting started. The next day, Jake was in his yard pulling a few weeds. The sun was warm and he whistled a little tune, woo, 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 while he worked. Everything felt normal. Birds sang. A breeze blew. His old truck sat in the driveway, quiet and rusty. Then out of nowhere, he heard a noise. Tap, tap, tap. He looked up and saw Karen. She was sneaking around his yard with a tape measure in her hand. Yep, a long yellow tape measure, the kind you use to measure stuff like desks or doors. She stretched it out near his house, then near his bushes, then near his mailbox. Tap, tap, tap went her feet as she moved around, muttering to herself. Jake stood up and wiped his hands on his jeans. Hey, Karen, he called. What are you doing? She jumped a little like she didn't expect him to see her. Her face turned pink, but she didn't stop. I'm checking for violations, she snapped. Your yard's a mess and that vent is still up there. You're breaking every rule in the book. Jake scratched his head. Violations, rules. His yard wasn't perfect, but it wasn't a jungle. And that vent, it wasn't hurting anyone. Karen, he said, it's just a vent. Chill out. But Karen didn't chill out. She rolled up her tape measure, snapped, and glared at him. You'll be sorry you didn't listen to me, she said, her voice low and mean. Then she marched back to her house, her clipboard swinging by her side. Jake watched her go, feeling a little confused. Sorry, what did that mean? Was she going to yell at him again, send him another letter? He didn't know, but he was starting to wonder what her problem was. Why was she so mad about a tiny pipe? Why couldn't she just leave him alone? Inside, Jake wasn't as calm as he looked. He sat in his kitchen, tapping his fingers on the table, tap, tap, tap. He didn't like fights, he didn't like trouble. He just wanted to fix cars and live his life. But Karen, she was like a buzzing bee that wouldn't go away. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Every time he thought she was done, she came back with something new. First it was the vent, now it was his yard. What was next? His truck, his socks. He didn't get it. What was her deal? What Jake didn't know, what nobody knew yet, was that Karen had secrets. Big ones. She acted like she was perfect, like she ruled Oakwood Lane with her clipboard and her rules. But she was hiding something snaky. Something that was about to blow up in her face like a balloon popping. Bang. Jake didn't see it coming. Karen didn't see it coming. But it was there, waiting like a surprise party nobody planned. The days went on and Karen got bossier. She'd walk by Jake's house and stare at that vent. She'd shake her head and write more notes. Clip, clip, clip. She'd mutter things like, he thinks he's so smart, or I'll show him. Jake tried to ignore her. He'd wave sometimes just to be nice, but she'd turn away like he was invisible. It was weird. It was annoying. And it was starting to make Jake wonder if she'd ever stop. One morning, Jake looked out his window and saw Karen standing in her yard, talking on her phone. She was packing back and forth, step, 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 waving her arms like she was mad. He couldn't hear what she was saying, but her face was all scrunched up. She kept pointing at his house, then at the sky, then at her clipboard. Jake sighed. Here we go again, he said to himself. He had no idea what she was up to, but he could tell it wasn't good. Karen wasn't just mad about the vent anymore. She was making a plan, a big, crazy plan. She thought she could boss Jake around and win. She thought she was the smartest person on the street. But oh, she was so wrong. Her little game was about to turn into a big mess, and Jake, he was just sitting there waiting, not even knowing what was coming. Hey there, friends, we're back with Jake and Karen, and things are heating up fast. That little roof vent on Jake's house. It's causing more trouble than anyone expected. Karen's getting bossier, Jake's getting confused, and something big is sneaking up on them both. Let's see what happened next. It's going to be a wild ride. Days went by after Karen's big yelling fit on Jake's porch. The sun came up, the sun went down, and Oakwood Lane stayed quiet, well, mostly quiet. Jake kept doing his thing. He'd fix cars in his garage, clank, clank, vroom, mow his lawn when it got shaggy, and sip soda on his porch. He didn't bother anyone. He just wanted a peaceful life. But Karen, oh, she wasn't letting go of that vent. Nope, not at all. She got bolder every day, like a kid who keeps poking a sleeping dog, not knowing it might bite back. One morning, Jake was watering his plants, splash, 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 when he saw Karen across the street. She had her phone out and she was snapping pictures of his house. Click, click, click went her camera. She zoomed in close on that roof vent, holding her phone up high like she was a detective hunting for clues. Jake squinted at her. "What's she doing now?" he mumbled. He wiped his hands on his shirt and watched. Karen moved left, then right, taking more pictures. Click, 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 like that vent was hiding gold or something crazy. She even stood on her tiptoes to get a better shot, her ponytail bouncing as she stretched. Jake didn't know what to say. He just stood there, hose dripping water onto his shoes, drip, 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 wondering why she cared so much. Was she going to show those pictures to the HOA? Was she making a big book of Jake's bad stuff? He shrugged and went back inside. "She's weird," he said to himself, shaking his head. He figured she'd get bored and stop. But Karen, she wasn't bored, she was just warming up. The next day, Jake caught her again. This time, she was in his yard, yep, his yard, with her phone out. Click, click, click. She was so close to his house, her nose almost touched the wall. Jake opened his window and leaned out. "Karen," he called, "why are you taking pictures of my vent?" She jumped like a cat scared by a loud noise, meow, and dropped her phone. Plop, it hit the grass and she scrambled to pick it up. Her face turned red, but she didn't back down. "It's for evidence," she shouted. "That vent against the rules, and I'm proving it." Then she ran off, her shoes slapping the ground, slap, slap, slap. Jake closed the window and sat on his couch. Evidence? For what? It was just a vent. He rubbed his forehead, feeling a little mad now. Karen was acting like he'd built a giant tower or a rocket ship on his roof. It was nuts, but he didn't yell or chase her. He just sighed and turned on the TV. Click. "She'll get tired of this," he told himself. "Oh, Jake, you sweet, quiet guy, you had no idea what was coming." Then one afternoon, everything got loud. Jake was in his kitchen making a sandwich, peanut butter and jelly, yum, when he heard a sound outside. Wee-oh-oh, sirens, loud screaming sirens that made his ears perk up. He dropped his knife, clatter, and ran to the window. Peek, peek, there it was, a police car rolling up his street, lights flashing red and blue. It stopped right in front of his house. Jake's heart sank like a rock in a pond. Plunk. "What now?" he muttered, wiping peanut butter off his hands. He peeked out again and saw a cop climb out of the car. The officer was tall, with a shiny badge and a hat pulled low. He looked around, then walked toward Jake's door. Jake's stomach twisted. Did I do something wrong? He thought. He couldn't think of anything. He didn't speed in his truck. He didn't steal anything. He didn't even play loud music. So why was a cop here? He took a deep breath, huff, and stepped outside just as the officer knocked. Tap, tap, tap. "Hi, sir," the cop said, tipping his hat a little. "I'm Officer Tom. We got a call about a suspicious device on your roof." He looked confused, scratching his head with one finger. Scratch, scratch. Jake blinked. "A what?" he asked. Officer Tom pointed up. "Up there, someone said it's dangerous or something." Jake followed his finger and saw the vent, that little metal pipe puffing steam like always, puff, puff, puff. He almost laughed, but he was too surprised. "That," he said, pointing to. "It's just a vent, man. Keeps my house cool. Nothing weird about it." Officer Tom tilted his head and looked up again. He didn't seem sure. "A vent, huh?" he said. "Well, we got a 911 call about it. Said it's suspicious and against the rules." Jake's mouth dropped open, plopped like a fish out of water. 911, he said. "Who called 911 over a vent?" Officer Tom shrugged. "Dunno, sir, but we have to check it out. You sure it's just a vent?" Jake nodded fast. "Yeah, it's been there forever. It's not a bomb or anything." Across the street, Karen was watching from her porch. She had her arms crossed and a big smirk on her face, like a kid who just won a game. Jake saw her and put it together. "Wait a minute," he said to the cop. "Did she call you?" He pointed at Karen. Officer Tom glanced over, then back at Jake. "Can't say who called, sir, but yeah, someone really wanted us to look at this." He scratched his head again, scratch, scratch, looking like he didn't believe Karen's story either. A vent, dangerous. It didn't add up. Jake shook his head. "This is crazy," he said. "She's been bugging me about that vent for days, taking pictures, measuring stuff, yelling at me. Now she calls 911. Officer Tom nodded slow. "Sounds like a neighbor thing," he said. "We get calls like this sometimes. People get mad and dial us up." He pulled out a little notebook, flip, and wrote something down. "I'll check it out and let her know it's fine," he said. Jake felt a little better, but he was still mad. 911 over a vent, that was next level nuts. But here, where it gets really good, friends. While Jake and Officer Tom were talking, blah, 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 another sound came. Wee-oh, more sirens. Jake turned around and his eyes got big. Another police car rolled up, lights flashing just like the first one. It stopped right in front of Karen's house. Two more cops stepped out, Officer Sue and Officer Mike. They didn't look at Jake. They didn't look at his vent. They walked straight toward Karen's porch, step, step, step. Karen's smirk disappeared fast. Poof, gone like magic. Her arms dropped to her sides and her mouth fell open, gasp. She froze, standing there like a statue, staring at the new cops. Jake tilted his head. "What's going on?" he whispered. Officer Tom looked over too, just as confused. "Huh," he said. "More of us, wonder why." The air felt thick, like something big was about to happen. Jake's heart beat faster, thump, thump, thump. Karen's eyes darted around, left, right, left, like she wanted to run but couldn't. Officer Sue knocked on Karen's door, knock, knock, even though Karen was right there on the porch. "Mrs. Thompson," she called. Karen didn't move. She just stood there, her clipboard hanging loose in her hand. Officer Mike stepped closer. "We need to talk to you," he said, his voice serious. Karen blinked fast, blink, 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 and finally squeaked, "Me." Her voice was tiny now, not loud and bossy like before. Jake watched, his sandwich forgotten back in the kitchen. What was this? Why were cops at Karen's house? He'd been so busy dealing with her yelling and her pictures that he hadn't thought about her side of things. Was she in trouble? Did she do something bad? Officer Tom chuckled next to him. "Well, this is new," he said. "Guess her call brought more than she bargained for." Friends, can you guess what's happening? Karen thought she was smart, calling 911 on Jake's vent. She thought she'd win. But now, something was flipping upside down, and it was Jake's day anymore. It was hers. Stick around because this story about to get super fun. What did Karen do? Why are the cops at her house? Oh, you're gonna love this next part. I promise it's a big surprise. Hey friends, we're at the best part of the story now. The big moment where everything flips upside down. Jake's little roof vent caused a lot of noise, but what's about to happen is way bigger than that. Karen thought she was the boss, but oh boy, she's in for a shock. Let's jump in and see what went down. Jake stood in his yard, watching it all happen. His heart was still beating fast, thump, thump, thump from the sirens and the cop asking about his vent. Officer Tom was next to him, scratching his head and looking at the vent like it was a puzzle. They just figured out Karen called 911 about it, saying it was a suspicious device. Crazy, right? Jake's vent wasn't suspicious. It was just a little pipe puffing steam, puff, puff, puff. But Karen made it sound like a big deal, and now the police were here. Across the street, the second cop car had pulled up. Wee-oh-oh, and two more officers stepped out. Officer Sue and Officer Mike. They didn't even glance at Jake or his house. Nope, they walked straight to Karen's porch, step, 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 like they had a mission. Jake's eyes got big. What was this? Karen was still on her porch, arms crossed, with that smug grin on her face. You know the kind, like when someone thinks they've won a game and can't wait to brag. She'd been smirking ever since Officer Tom showed up at Jake's place. She probably thought, ha, I got him in trouble now. But then Officer Sue knocked on Karen's door, knock, 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 even though Karen was standing right there. Mrs. Thompson, she said, her voice loud and clear. Karen's grin disappeared fast, poof, gone like ice cream melting on a hot summer day. Her arms dropped to her sides, flop, and her mouth opened a little like she didn't know what to say. We need to talk, Officer Mike added, stepping closer. He had a serious look, not a smiley one. Karen blinked fast, blink, 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 and squeaked, me. Her voice wasn't bossy anymore. It was tiny, like a mouse caught in a trap squeak. Jake tilted his head, watching from his yard. What's going on? He whispered to himself. Officer Tom heard him and turned to look too. Huh, he said, this is getting interesting. Karen's face went pale, like all the color ran away. Whoosh. She clutched her clipboard tight like it could save her, but it couldn't, not this time. The cops weren't here for Jake's vent anymore. They were here for her, and Jake, he was about to find out why. Here's the big secret, friends. Karen wasn't as perfect as she acted. Nope, turns out while she was busy playing neighborhood detective, pointing at Jake's vent and taking pictures, click, 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 someone else was watching her. See, Karen had a sneaky little side hustle. A hustle is like a secret job, and hers wasn't a good one. She'd been making fake HOA fine. Yep, fake. She'd write letters to new people who moved into Oakwood Lane, people who didn't know all the rules yet. Her letters said stuff like, you owe $50 because your mailbox is too tall, or pay $100 because your grass is wrong, but those weren't real rules. She made them up. Then when people paid her cha-ching, she didn't give the money to the HOA. Nope. She kept it in her pocket. Snaky, right? She'd been doing this for months, thinking no one would notice. New neighbors were scared of her clipboard and her loud voice, so they just handed over the cash, flip, flip, flip. Karen thought she was so smart, collecting money like that. She'd smile and strut around with her perfect lawn and her shiny mailbox, acting like the queen of the street. But she wasn't smart enough to hide it forever. And guess who figured it out? Jake, quiet car-fixing Jake. He didn't even mean to at first. One day he found one of her shady letters in his mailbox. It said, pay $75 because your truck is too old. Jake scratched his head, scratch, scratch, and thought, that's not a rule. He knew the HOA rules because he paid his dues every month, clink, clink. There was nothing about trucks or vents or any of that stuff, so he got curious. He didn't yell or make a fuss. He just started watching Karen back. Jake talked to a few neighbors, whisper, whisper, like Mrs. Lee down the street and Mr. Patel next door. Hey, he said, did you get a weird letter from Karen? They nodded, nod, nod. Yeah, Mrs. Lee said. She told me I owed $60 for my flowers, and me $40 for my fence, Mr. Patel added. Jake frowned. That's not right, he said, so they teamed up, quiet as mice SHH, and dug deeper. They found old letters, checked the real HOA rules, and saw the truth. Karen was a scammer. She'd been taking their money and laughing all the way to her fancy porch. They didn't confront her. Nope, they were smarter than that. They called the real authorities, the police, and showed them the proof. Papers, letters, dates, everything stacked up like a tower, pile, pile, pile. The cops said, we'll look into it. And they did. They watched Karen too, waiting for the right moment. She had no idea. She kept bossing people around, snapping pictures of Jake's vent, click, click, thinking she was winning. But she was. The net was closing in swoosh. Back to that wild afternoon. Officer Sue and Officer Mike stood on Karen's porch staring her down. Mrs. Thompson, Officer Sue said, we've got reports of fake fines. People say you've been taking money you shouldn't. Karen's eyes got huge, pop like balloons about to burst. What? She squeaked. That's a lie. But her voice shook, wobble, wobble, and her hands trembled, shake, shake. She wasn't so tough now. Officer Mike pulled out a little book, flip, and read from it. We've got letters, dates, and names. Looks like you've been busy. He didn't smile. He just kept talking, calm and steady. You're in trouble, ma'am. Then Officer Sue stepped forward with shiny handcuffs. Clink, clink. We're taking you in to ask more questions, she said. Karen's jaw dropped, plop, so low it almost hit the floor. No, she yelled. This is a mistake. I didn't do anything. Jake watched it all, his mouth open to gasp. Officer Tom chuckled next to him. Well, well, he said. Looks like her emergency call just sped things up. He patted Jake on the shoulder, pat, pat. Guess she didn't expect this when she dialed 911 about your vent. Jake nodded, slow nod, still shocked. Yeah, he said, guess not. Karen tried to argue, blah, 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 but the cops weren't listening. Officer Sue took her clipboard snatch, and Officer Mike grabbed her arm, gentle but firm. Let's go, he said. They started reading her rights like you hear on TV. You have the right to stay quiet. Karen's face went from pale to red, flush, and she twisted around looking at Jake. This is your fault, she shouted, pointing a shaky finger. Wiggle, wiggle. Jake just shrugged. Nope, he said. You did this. The neighbors started peeking out now, peek, peek from windows and doors. Mrs. Lee poked her head out, hello, and Mr. Patel stepped onto his lawn. They whispered, whisper, whisper, watching Karen get marched to the cop car, step, step, step. Her perfect ponytail bounced, but not in a bossy way anymore. She looked scared, she looked small. That roof vent, it wasn't the problem. Karen was. She'd been caught, and all because Jake and the neighbors stayed quiet and smart. Officer Tom turned to Jake. You okay? He asked. Jake nodded, nod. Yeah, he said, just glad it's over. Officer Tom grinned. Good job tipping off your friends, he said. She's been at this a while. Then he walked back to his car, step, leaving Jake standing there amazed. Friends who saw that coming. Karen thought she'd get Jake in trouble with her 911 call, but it flipped right back on her. That vent was just a vent, but Karen's secrets, they were the real trouble. She scammed, she bossed, she pointed fingers, and now she was caught. Bam. Jake didn't even have to yell. He just watched and waited, and the truth came out like sunshine after rain, bright and clear. Hey friends, we're at the part where everything settles down after the big surprise. Karen's in big trouble now, and Jake's little roof vent, it's still just chilling up there. Let's see how this wild day ended and what happened next on Oakwood Lane. It's a happy ending, you'll love it. By the time the sun started going down that day, Karen was in handcuffs, clink, clink. Officer Sue and Officer Mike had her by the arms, walking her to their police car, step. Her face wasn't smug anymore. Nope, it was all red and sweaty, like she'd run a race and lost. Her clipboard, the one she always carried like a queen's crown, sat on her porch all alone. Plop, it looked sad, like a toy nobody wanted anymore. Karen kept yelling, blah, 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 saying, this is a mistake. But the cops didn't listen. They put her in the car, slam went the door, and drove off. Wee-oh-oh faded away as the lights flashed down the street. Jake stood in his yard, watching it all. He didn't jump up and down or cheer. He didn't gloat or say, ha, I won. No, he just leaned against his old rusty truck creak and crossed his arms. His vent puffed steam up on the roof, puff, 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 like nothing had happened. Around him, the neighbors started coming out. Peek, peek, Mrs. Lee popped out her door. Mr. Patel stepped onto his grass. Even little Timmy from down the street rode his bike over Zoom to see what was going on. They all whispered, whisper, whisper, shaking their heads like they couldn't believe it. Karen's gone, Mrs. Lee asked, her eyes big pop. Yep, Mr. Patel said, nodding, nod. She's in trouble now. They looked at Jake, then at Karen's empty porch, then back at Jake. Nobody knew what to say at first. It was quiet for a minute, SHH, except for the birds chirping tweet, tweet. Then Timmy piped up, she was mean anyway. Everyone laughed, ha ha ha, and the air felt lighter, like a big cloud had floated away, whoosh. Jake didn't say much, he just watched the chaos unfold like a movie playing out in front of him. The cops were gone, Karen was gone, and that vent still there doing its job. He scratched his head, scratch, scratch, and thought, wow, that was crazy. He didn't expect any of this when he woke up that morning. He just wanted to fix a car and eat a sandwich, yum. But Karen's big plan flipped everything upside down, and now she was the one in a mess. A few days later, the HOA had an emergency meeting. You know, the club that makes rules for the neighborhood. They all got together in Mrs. Lee's living room, chairs squeaking, people talking, blah, blah, blah. Jake went too, just to see what would happen. Everyone was buzzing, buzz, buzz, like bees in a hive. Karen's out, Mr. Patel said, clapping his hands, clap, clap. She's not in charge anymore. Turns out, a lot of people had stories about her. Mrs. Lee said, she made me pay $60 for my flowers, Mr. Patel added, and $40 for my fence. Even quiet old Mr. Gomez spoke up, hello, and said, she told me my dog barked too much and charged me $25. Everyone nodded, nod, because they'd all been tricked by her fake fines. The HOA people were mad, grr. They looked at the real rules, no fake stuff there, and saw what Karen did was wrong. She can't stay, Mrs. Lee said. She's a bully and a sneak, so they voted, raise your hands, and kicked her out for good. By Karen, they cheered, yay, no more clipboard, no more bossy letters, no more fake money going into her pocket, cha-ching. She was done and everyone felt happy about it, smile, smile. With Karen gone, Oakwood Lane changed. It felt lighter, like someone opened a window and let fresh air in, whoosh. Kids rode their bikes again, zoom, zoom, laughing loud. Neighbors waved at each other, hi, hi, instead of hiding from Karen's glare. The grass still grew, the sun still shined, but it was freer now. No one was scared of getting a mean note in their mailbox anymore. It was like the street took a big, happy breath, ah. Jake noticed it too. He'd be in his garage fixing a car, clank, clank, when people started saying hi. Mrs. Lee walked over one day, step, step, with a big smile. Thanks, Jake, she said, handing him a cookie, yum, you helped us get rid of her. Jake blinked, blink, blink, me, he said. Yeah, she laughed, ha ha. You told us about her letters. We figured it out because of you. Jake took the cookie, crunch, and shrugged. I just thought it was weird, he said. She patted his arm, pat, pat, and walked away, still smiling. Then Mr. Patel came by, hello, with a nod. Good job, Jake, he said. You're okay. Even little Timmy rode up, zoom, yelling, you're cool, Jake, and sped off, vroom. Jake scratched his head again, scratch, scratch, feeling a little shy. He didn't talk to these people much before. He was the quiet guy with the truck and the vent. But now, they liked him, they thanked him. It felt nice, warm, and fuzzy, like a hug from a friend. That vent, it stayed right where it was, up on the roof, puffing steam, puff, 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 quiet and unbothered. Karen hated it, but it didn't care. It just kept doing its job, keeping Jake's house cool. He'd look up at it sometimes, leaning on his truck, creak, and smile a little grin. You caused a lot of trouble, he'd say to it like it could hear him. But really it wasn't the vent's fault. It was Karen's. She picked the fight and she lost, boom. By the end of the week, things were calm again. The cop cars didn't come back. Karen didn't come back. Someone said she had to pay back all the money she took, clink, clink, and maybe even go to jail, yikes. Jake didn't know for sure and he didn't care much. He was just glad it was over. He could fix his cars, vroom, eat his sandwiches, yum, and sit on his porch without Karen yelling at him. Peace at last, ah. Oakwood Lane was happy now. Neighbors talked more, hi, hi, shared cookies, crunch, and played outside, yay. Jake stayed his quiet self, but he wasn't alone anymore. People knew him, they liked him, and that vent, it puffed away, a little hero in its own way, puff, puff. Karen's big plan to get Jake in trouble flipped right back on her, wham, and justice was served. Fair and square, done. Hey, friends, let's wrap up Jake and Karen's story with a fun thought. Karen was loud, yelling about Jake's vent, pointing fingers, acting big. But she hid a secret: fake fines, sneaky money, cha-ching. She thought she'd win, but nope. Jake stayed quiet, no yelling, just watching. He found her shady letter, told neighbors, whisper, whisper, and waited. The truth popped out, bam, and Karen got caught, clink, clink. Here's the cool part: loud doesn't always win. Jake was calm, smart, and let justice roll in. Whoosh. Maybe we can try that too. When someone's bossy, grr, we don't have to shout back. Watch, think, and the right thing happens. Yay, what do you think? Did Karen deserve it? Tell me in the comments. Type. If you liked this tale, twists and all, give a thumbs up. Click. Next time I'll bring another story, underdogs with surprises. Ooh, stay curious, okay? The real fun hides sometimes. Peek, like Jake's vent. Puff, puff. See you soon. Wave, wave. Bye, friends. Smile.